In this chapter, we are tackling some very common challenges that you will face sooner or later in real life. And you will have to know how to work with arrays, how to filter them, how to compare them. And you are also going to need it for the practical challenge that is coming at the end of this chapter of level 4 for the assessment, as it will ask you to solve similar problems. So pay attention to the examples that we are looking into right now. First, we are going to repurpose this repeater to tackle the pagination challenges that we've looked before to get all the country list data out. So I will copy and paste that into my current scenario. And then I will simply use router as the starting step so we can trigger our different examples. Now, we talked about that before. If it does not load, just close it and open it again, and it will load properly. Flow control, router, and then I will just connect that one here. All right, so that is our full list. Save, ignore warnings. And if we run this one more time, just to check what the output looks like right now. All right, so we have set that to the 5 pages in total, and our output looks like this. We are getting our 240 countries as a single array. And that is what we are going to use in the other examples. Let's set up a variable here at the end of this path and use the country full array. Full country array, let's name it like that. Full country array, and that is simply the output here, and then we can use it in the other branches as variable. Set full country array. All right, and now let's look at some examples. The first example that we want to look at is which countries are speaking Portuguese. We want to identify the countries from the countries where Portuguese is spoken list, which are also on the main countries list. And when the country is actually on the country list, we can safely assume that Portuguese value is entered in the official language column as well. So no need for any extra logic comparing whether the language is actually Portuguese or not. And when we're done with this exercise, we will see that one of the countries from the countries where Portuguese is spoken list will not get matched with the countries list, which is a very common issue in the data matching exercises. So something always does not match. And what do we need to do first? We need to get the full country list. So we get this full CTR array by using the get variable module. Within tools, get variable, and here we put in the name of that array. I always like to copy and paste it just to avoid any kind of spelling errors. And then we have the country array here. Let's name it full country array. And next we need to get the data of our Portuguese countries. The link is in the description below where you can get that data set. To get the data, we're using the HTTP make a request module, get, and then pasting the URL. And we are parsing the response. We want to get that actually out. And we are renaming the module so we know what that is. That is Portuguese countries. And now we can run this once just to double check that we are doing the right output. Okay, Portuguese country data looks like this. We have 9 countries here which speak Portuguese. We have Portugal, Brazil, Angola, Cape Verde, and so on, and Sao Tome and Príncipe as the last one. Now we need an iterator to iterate through the list of countries first that speak Portuguese, because that is the smaller array and that will be more efficient to compare to the full array. So parsing like that. And the next thing would be to use the text aggregator to get out the actual list that we wanted to. So iterator and then text. And here we have to define what we want to filter. So we have our full array here that we want to filter, the full countries array. And the structure is as the following. We have country name, index, ISO 2, and ISO 3. We want to get out the country name where it matches the country name of our Portuguese speaking list. Therefore, we can use the map function, which you can find under the array tab over here. this function over here, it's quite handy. You can filter arrays and create a simplified array based on that. So we are using the map function. I removed that by accident to filter this array. And we want to get out the country name where. So the first is the key that we want to get out, the first item of that function. And the second element is the key that we want to filter by, which is also country name. So we just type that out. And then the actual value that we want to filter by is our country that we can use from the iterator of our iterated country list of the Portuguese speaking countries. And this will give us an array of the country list where it matches the country of the Portuguese speaking list. And now we just want to get the first element because there will be just one country in our full country list that is exactly the same as Sao Tome, for example, or Brazil. And we are aggregating this. So we want to get a list of the countries and then using new row as the separator and pressing OK. And now let's run this once to check the output. And here is our list of Portuguese speaking countries, which is Portugal, Brazil, Angola, Cape Verde, and so on, and East Timor. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 countries in total. And the question is, why is the last one empty? We can check the individual runs. So let's check bundle number 9, which is Sao Tome and Principe. And then we can check our full country list array and search for Sao Tome in the output bundle. So if I search for Tome over here, you can find it here in the list. It is there, but it did not match because the spelling of this one is actually different. This one is pure letters and has no accents and nothing. And that's why it did not match and did not output this country in that specific list. All right. That's our first example, how you can get out this country list. All right, for example number 2, we're going to simplify this scenario a little bit. We first need to include the official languages spoken because we want to get this one out as well in our array. And let's add that one to our text aggregator. Then we have to let it run once because the array aggregator doesn't contain this variable yet. Disable that one and run this once. And now we can select it here for our official language, for our array aggregator, and run this one more time. And then we get the full array as the output here. And we are going to use this for further testing without having to waste all these operations here. To do that, we are clicking on the one, then download output bundle, copy everything, and setting up a new branch here with a parse JSON module. JSON, parse JSON, and simply pasting the full download output bundle. Now, if I run this once, I get the full country array as one single operation here, and I can use it for further testing, and I don't have to waste all these operations for the pagination anymore. Get that same name here. And now our goal, our example 2, is that we want to get out the country which was not found on the main country list. Example 2, get missing countries on CGR list of Portuguese list on CGR list. So we want to get the countries that are on the PTG list, but are not on the full country list out. So let's just copy this one here. And now we are trying to determine the ones that are missing. Therefore, we can copy the formula that we've created before. We have to update that one with our actually new variable here. Then we can copy it. The 23 is still outline only because we haven't run the iterator yet. So I will just copy that one and put it on a filter in between. So this will check again if the full country array will get out the country name of the full country array, filtered by if the country name is equal to the country on the Portuguese speaking list. And then we can say if this does not exist simply, which means the country was not found in the full country array, PTG country not found in CGR list. And then our output should simply be the country name of these countries. And we have to run it once in order to get that. Or I can also copy the outlined variable here like this. And now we can run this to get the output. You can see this is our Portuguese speaking countries. Then our filter matched none of them because we said if it does not exist, except the last bundle. And then our output was only Sao Tome and Principe. So that was our output. And now we know, okay, which are the countries actually missing. Let's get into another example. And that is to get one bundle for every unique language spoken inside our countries list. So example number 3, one bundle for each language spoken on the CTR list. We're using our full CTR array again and disable the other route. Let's run this once and check our output. So if we check the countries list on Google Sheets, there is one country, which is India, which has 2 different languages as their official languages. And this is what we have to consider while we are creating our scenario. So this should be bundle numbers 96, 94, 95, something around that. Let's check 95. India, here we go. So we need to split the official languages and then put it back together. So we have one separate bundle for all languages that are different. Therefore, we use an iterator, use our full country array, and then we need another iterator to iterate the official languages. Since they might be separated by a comma, we have to use the split function and then put a comma as the separator and a closing bracket here, parentheses. And now we would get out all the individual languages here. We can also say only the ones where official language actually exists. Official language exists, because we are only interested in these bundles. Now let's run this and check what the output looks like. We have 15 bundles that actually have an official language. And then the output looks like this. Here we have India actually with Hindi and English. And then the other ones are just English, for example, Portuguese, English again, and also English. Now let's aggregate that and group it by the language actually. So we use the first iterator as our input, which is number 26. Then we use the country name index ISO 3 and official languages from our country list. And then this one, we only need it for grouping. In that case, we can literally use the value output because the variable is called value. So we can simply use group by value for our languages. And now if we run this, we are almost there. We get one output here with our array of English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Hindi. And these are our output bundles, so they will continue throughout the rest of the scenario one by one. And it contains all countries that are speaking Portuguese. In that case, the list is not complete because our sample data doesn't have the official language set everywhere. But it also compiles the list for Hindi and also for English, with India having 2 languages actually set. Now let's expand this example a little bit more to show you 2 more variations of the output that we can get from this data set. So to recap, ignore the warnings. I extracted the example number 3 into separate scenario, and here we have our full country list array as an input. Then we iterate the full country list, so we have it as separate bundles. Then we check if the official language actually exists. And if it exists, then we want to split the official languages and iterate through it. So we get all languages as separate bundles. So for example, here we have English, and so on. So we get all available languages as individual bundles, and then we aggregate it back together and we group by the value of this iterator here. And then the final output looks like this. We have key English and then all English speaking countries, key Spanish and then all Spanish speaking countries like Mexico, for example, then the Portuguese speaking countries and the Hindi speaking countries. Now, one more goal that we want to achieve is we want to get a list of all languages plus count how many countries actually speak that language inside an email. So we need to use a text aggregator, and that list of languages should be sorted alphabetically. How can we do that? Well, there's the sort function that allows you to sort it alphabetically, but you can only use it for arrays. Since this is actually outputting multiple bundles, we have to use an array aggregator first to get it into one big single array like this. And using the array aggregator as the source, and we can use key and the array as input or output for this array aggregator. And let's look at the output now. It will be one single array, so one bundle with a collection inside an array. And then we have the key, which is English, and here we have the key Spanish and the key Portuguese and so on. And then one level deeper, we have the actual array of Spanish-speaking countries and so on. Now we can use this main array and sort it by the IMT key, which is the actual language. So using an iterator again to iterate the array into the individual languages, because the final output needs to be a text string. Here we can use the sort function. So our input is the array, and then the sort function, you can find that under the array tab and then selecting sort. And we want to sort it by IMT key. So it is this one over here, the key. If you hover over it, you get the raw value. And remember, this one has 2 underscores. So be really careful with this. So we need to type 2 underscores and IMT key and 2 underscores again. And now let's look at the order or the output again. If we run this, it will look like this. So we have English first, then Hindi, then Portuguese, and then Spanish. Previously, it was in a different order. So we had English, then Spanish, then Portuguese, and then Hindi. But now it's sorted alphabetically by language, and we can use the text aggregator to do our final step, and that is selecting the iterator as the source. And now we want to get the language, colon, and then the amount of countries that are in there. So we can use the length function to get the length of our array, which represents the amount of countries that speak Hindi in that case, or speak English. And we want to separate the whole thing by new row, so we get a nicely formatted list. And let's run this. It will look like this. We have English, colon, 7. So there are 7 countries who speak English, Hindi 1, Portuguese 2, and Spanish 6 countries. And this is sorted alphabetically. Now, one more use case. We want to get like a list of all countries, colon, and then the official language that is spoken in that specific country out of this array. How can we do this? Let me add a router in here to have that separate branch. Here we're using an iterator right away because we need to split up the individual arrays here. So we need to split up these arrays, and then we have individual bundles for each country. And then we can put it together into the country, colon, and then the language. So selecting the array here and trying the output, or trying to see the output. It will look like this. We have the array as input with all the English speaking countries for operation 1. Then we have all countries like this. Then operation number 2 are all Spanish speaking countries, and it will look like this, and so on. Then we use the text aggregator to get it into a text format that we can use for our emails or something else. If we would use the iterator as the source, we will get out 4 bundles, but we don't want to get only 4 bundles. We want to get actually 1 bundle out. So using the array aggregator in that case is the correct way to go for this. And then simply select the country name and then colon, and then the language that we get from our array aggregator. You could also use the official languages here. It would basically be the same, but I will show you how to use it from the array aggregator. You want to split this by new row as well, and let's check how that looks like. Here we get our long text string with all the countries listed and the actual languages that are spoken in that country. Now, to put that into an email, we learned before that you need to use the HTML tags in order to format new lines. There are 2 options to go about this. The first option is, which I will clone here, so clone and then add that in, is to use another separator. So instead of using the new row, you can use the other separator and then type a BR here, and it will look like this. And it's not easy to read, so it might be easier for you to read if you keep it that way. And you can also use this and then add a set variable module afterwards and replace HTML output. And then we use the text as the input and use the replace function to replace all new lines, which we can find under the A tab, and then new line with the actual HTML tag for new line, so BR. And then we also get the same result as for our text aggregator down here. And we can directly use that inside an email. So both option works, and you can see that it actually consumes very little operations here, and you get it into a format that you can use for emails. Let's get into yet another example, and that is to get the ISO codes or to expand the information that we have for the countries of our area list based on the values in the country list. So let's look at our lists here. We have the country areas. We want to look up these countries and then add data to the array, like the country ISO code, for example, and the official languages. Let's disable that route here and run this one more time. So we get the actual array output here, full country list. And we want to get the country areas. So using a make a request, you find the URL as well in the description below this video. We want to get the country areas out. That looks like this. And we get the countries here. Let's rename that get area list. And now our goal is to iterate that. And then get the data from our full country list array. So we want to iterate full country list array as well. And then put it all back together with the first iterator being the source and getting out the name and the official languages. Now we also want to add the data here, but it's not giving us the variables here that we are looking for. So it's not giving us the area in square kilometers and the country name here because Make does not know what data to expect. That's why I'm using the trick that I've shown before, which is to use the transform to JSON module here, where we transform the data to JSON, and then we simply parse the JSON again and parse the data that we get from the JSON string. And then we can replace the iterator with that module here. So parse JSON, and then we have to run this once in order to get the data. Let me organize it. And now we are able to select the values from our parse.json module. So country, area, and square kilometers, country name, we can add that in, but we don't have to. And the official language, and maybe also want to include the ISO2 code. So let's run that one more time. And let's check the outputs. We have our array, we have our data, then we transform it to JSON, then we parse it again, the JSON, so we get a proper structure that Make can use in the array aggregator. And of course, we have to filter the full data here because that will give us the full country list, and we only want to use the ones where the country name of our areas list matches equal to case insensitive, the country name of our countries list. So area country equal CTR list country. Only these ones should get out. And now we can run it and check the final output. You can see the countries got only found 10 times, and our output array also contains 10 items with the aggregated data. We have country, area, and square kilometers, the country name, which is the same value from the other list, country ISO, and official languages are none here. Canada has English, and so on. Now, if you would like to send this array inside an email, you would probably replace it with a text aggregator instead to get one text string, and then you can put it in the body of the email, probably like split by BR so you have new lines. Now, let me show you another way of doing this so we can avoid using all these operations in between in the iterator, because for every bundle it was found here, it will actually use one operation, and that is a lot for every item in that array. And I will show you an alternative way of doing it right now. That's how I will do it. I will add a router here. And then we are using an iterator to iterate through our area list like this. And let's run this once so we get the data out of our iterator for mapping. We can disable that route because we're not needing that one right now. So we have our country list here, just like we had before. And now we are going to use the aggregate to JSON module. Here we're using the iterator as the source, and now we have to define a data structure. We already talked about data structures before, and now we're going to use that one again. So let's call it enhanced area list, and we have to define our specifications. First, we need the country name, which is text format. And then for the official language, we need to use an array because it can also have multiple languages. It can have just one or it can have 0. So we use type of array. The array item specification is what kind of items are inside the array, and that's also text in our case, so we can leave it as is. Now, pressing save, it will give us the fields that we have to map in. First, the country. That's pretty simple. Then for ISO code 2, we have to use a map function to map our full country array list. And then we want to get the ISO code 2. So we have to look up, okay, what is the exact raw value of ISO code 2? And that is country underscore ISO underscore 2. And we want to filter by the country name. So it's country underscore name, where the country name is equal to the one of our area list, like this. And then we use the first function in order to transform that into a text string, because we just need the first item of the array that the map function will output, because there will be only one anyways. And then we have to transform it into a text string. So that is what this one is doing. Then for the official language, we can use a similar approach. So I will just copy that one. And here, instead of getting the country ISO code, we want to get the official languages out. Like official languages is official underscore languages. And then we might have one or multiple ones. So let's look again into the actual sheet. So here are the official languages. And for example, India has 2 official languages split by a comma. So we need to make sure that we take care of this. And we can do this by using the split function here with splitting it by a comma. And that way the languages will be split up into separate items inside the array. So if I run this now, let's check the output. It will look like this. So we have our countries, Russia, China, Brazil, and so on. And for country India, we actually have an array of English and Hindi. So that will be the file that we want to send over. And we just need to do the final step by using Gmail, send an email, and set the subject line, test JSON. For attachment, we want to add the file name, which is countries.json. Remember, you have to add the file extension as well, including the ending. And then for data, it's always a good practice to use 2-binary to make it smaller. And then we can use the JSON string data from our previous module, the aggregated JSON. And that way we're sending ourselves a JSON file with the data that we have output here. Let's see what that looks like. The email got sent, and let's check our inbox. Here we go. This is our email, and here is the JSON file. It contains all the details that we set up. Now, if we want to have this not only output as a JSON, but also in the body of the email, we can use parse JSON module to parse the data, JSON string, and then use a text aggregator to put it back together in a text format, and the parse JSON as the output. And then we can use like new row as the separator, or actually, because we're sending an email and it needs HTML, we can use BR as the separator to have new lines. And then we can use the data from our parse JSON module as the input here. Since Make does not know what to expect here, we have to run this first. So let me run this once. And now we can compile or set up the structure for our email body. So country, and then ISO code, and then the official languages. Since this is an array, we have to join them and select the full array and then join them by a comma maybe, plus a space. So we can also define a space here. like this, and then maybe use a colon here, country, and then isocode like this. Okay. And now we can use that in the body of our email as the following. Let me format that nicely here. And now let's check that output. You can see no matter how many items there are in the arrays, it will still just consume one operation for the iteration and then one for the aggregation, and same for building out the body of the email. It also just consumes two operations, and no matter how many items you're processing. So that is very efficient for operations. Now let's check this one more time and see if we got a new email here. Here we go. So now we also have the list inside a nicely formatted way in our email with the country name, the short code, ISO code 2, and also the official languages. And here's also the array of our official languages split with comma and a space. Now to sum it all up, we have looked into a bunch of different examples how you can use iterators and aggregators and filter your data, for example, with the map function, and combine it with the first function to get the first item of that array that you have mapped before, and also using map functions and filters like this. And then we looked into filtering full lists or comparing arrays with each other in a way where it consumes more operations, and then another way that is more efficient. And then finally, we wanted to send it all as an email in the body, as well as appending it as an attachment as a JSON file. If you're using any static data in your scenarios for development purposes, make sure not to forget it there forever, and make sure to start using the real dynamic data when you're about to start using your scenario in production. Let's move on to the next video.